morning, good afternoon, and good evening, AGA members. I'm Chris Garlock, managing editor of the American Go Association's e-journal, joined once again by Michael Redmond, 9Dan Professional. Today, Michael will be reviewing one of his own games, a game he played recently against Numa Date 6P in the Kisei tournament. As always, before we get into today's review, I want to thank all of our AGA members. And if you'd like to support this content as well, please consider joining the American Go Association at usgo.org. So, Michael, we're going to take a little break from the heavy lifting of the AlphaGo series, and thanks to everybody for all of your wonderful comments. We appreciate those. And we're going to take a look at one of your recent games.
Yeah.
So this is from the Kisei. Earlier, well, by the time this comes out, it'll be almost a month, I think, but early in March, I think, right?
It was early March, and this was the final of the FT tournament. So I think I was talking about this a bit in my commentary about my game with Mizokami.
Yes.
So there's about 5 rounds. And for this year, it was 5 rounds for me. I think that differs a little bit sometimes, but it's generally 5 or 6 rounds in the FT tournament, and that's the starting tournament, and the FT starts for first tournament. And when you win through that, you start playing in leagues. So there's, if I had won this game, I would be in a C league, and that would be a league with about 32 players. And again, that sometimes changes a little bit, but it's supposed to be 32 players, and it's going to be a Swiss. With 5 rounds. So there's going to be one player with a perfect record because they're matching winners against winners. So there's going to be one player with a perfect record who's going to win the tournament and get into a final tournament to decide the challenger for the Kisei tournament. And the rest of it is, there's a lot of details about how you promote to a B league and stuff like that. I won't get into that this time.
But just one quick question, so because I think a lot of folks who are watching this, are or have been tournament players. What are some of the things that you do to prepare? These are obviously serious games.
Well, Numa Date is among the younger players, he's one of the more prominent players. And he hasn't really had any great successes so far. And that's sort of demonstrated by the fact that he's still only a 6P. If you get into one of the top round-robin leagues, then you're going to be promoted to a 7P.
Right.
So when someone suddenly changes from something like a 3P to a 7P, then you know that he's done something special. So he's not really done anything like that, but his games are really interesting. And I was pretty sure that I would be facing an invasion to the 3-3 point. So you're going to get to see that. And I'm gonna give a bit of some details of what my present ideas about that are. And then in this game, the game is really exciting in some parts of the game, and especially towards the end where it gets a bit exciting. And so I got a lot of variations in. It's so in many ways it's very similar to my commentaries about the Zero games, and that it does go on for a while, and it gets really exciting towards the end.
Oh man! All right, let's enough with this chit chat then. Let's get to it.
Okay, so I have the white stones, and this time I decided to play a star point. This year, in some of my games, I've been avoiding the 3-3 invasions by playing a 3-4 point. But I decided that it didn't matter this time, and I did play one 3-3 point. The 3-3 point, in my opinion. Just to go back to this white move here, I think it works fairly well with these diagonal openings because it's a group that's completely alive, whereas if you play a star point, you have to add 2 more moves to it to get a complete territory shape. So I sort of like to play the 3-3 point in these diagonal openings. And so my opponent jumps in. So this is, it was sort of expected. But, it's not as if I can win easily if I avoid this anyway. So I was going to try it out in this game. And I have the white stones, but I was expecting my opponent to jump in.
Well, just a quick question along those lines. How much of this had you planned out before you even walked into the room?
Very little. I had done a lot of general study of what happens with 3-3 point invasions.
Okay.
But not necessarily in this particular game. And like Black's move here, the diagonal opening it's an unusual choice. Like it's a low percentage choice. So I wasn't really expecting this move.
Okay.
But once I saw it, I was pretty sure he was going to be jumping into the 3-3 point. Mm-hmm. It sort of makes sense in the in view of what AlphaGo has been doing. Okay. It sort of makes sense. There's a kind of a logical.
You sound a little doubtful. But,
okay. The 3-3 invasion still remains to be a move that I don't really feel that comfortable with.
Right.
But I am going to take this chance to look into what I think are the natural variations. Like in the game, I played the Knight's move here, which is the move that I like most in most positions. But when Black has stones on both sides, as Black does in this opening, actually playing the Hane is another option.
Okay.
And what I'm saying here is that there's a relatively simple joseki for people who don't really like what's happening with these invasions. Some people might want to play the double Hane here. And so this is a relatively simple one in which I would expect Black to play this variation. And the virtue of this for White is that White is completely alive here. And like with these 3-3 invasions, in many cases we have this white wall facing the outside, which doesn't really have any eye shape. And we have Black trying to attack White. So that's the other variation. So why don't I show it to demonstrate? Like if White extends here, then this is the joseki here. And when there's no stone on the right side, I think it's correct for Black to pro once more. So although that was a new move that Master, no, it was, it was Master, yeah, what the Master showed us. It works well when there's no extension on the side. So it was really the lack of a stone on the right side that makes this a good move. And then Black plays this extension. And with all of the Black stones sort of pretty close to this white wall, it's really difficult for White to make this wall work as thickness.
Yeah.
And there is a real danger that Black will eventually be able to attack White after adding stones in the area. So this is a variation that I didn't like very much. And this variation with the double Hane, the double Hane is this move. Right. Which leads pretty almost always to this shape. Is going to give White a living shape and a wall towards the right side, and Black gets a ponnuki, good shape on the left side. It's an even trade, and the point is White has territory and also has a living shape, a very strong shape, which makes it relatively, to simplify this local position, is good when there's a lot of Black strength in that half of the board, you might say. If we split the board diagonally, then the lower right area is pretty much full of Black stones. So there's a lot of Black stones in that half of the board,
right? Which
means that it's a good idea for White to be playing fairly solidly here.
And
so
there's
some reason.
No, it's just finished for White, right?
It's finished. It's a live shape. Right. So there is some reason to play this way. And it's something that I would be willing to do. And for people who are sort of aggravated by all of these 3-3 invasions, it's a good way to play. But I had a different idea in this game. So this is kind of a suggestion to people who are having trouble with the 3-3 invasion from the viewpoint of the star point. But I played the Knight's move here. And this is a variation where there's all sorts of new things happening in professional games. And even with AIs, like there's a lot of AIs that are showing up on the internet now, and they're playing against professional players. They're playing new moves too, but also in professional play, in human professional play, there's a lot of new stuff happening with this. And there's the question of, does Black bump against here, which is the game move, or does Black play at A? And so there's all sorts of variations associated with that. And that didn't happen in this case. So I'm going to wait for the next time. And maybe it's going to happen in a following game. And it does, to a certain extent, happen in the AlphaGo games. So we're going to have chances in those too.
Sure.
So this is another splitting point. This is where this move also is a splitting point. But again, I'll save that for a later date. But this is another point where White has two choices. One would be this Hane, and one would be the extension. And of course, there's the double Hane on the left, but I don't like that very much. So I'm going to talk about the extension first.
Yeah.
This again is a relatively simple joseki, but it works best for white. For instance, if there's a white stone in the upper right corner. When there's a black stone in the upper right corner, black plays this extension, which is also kind of a pincer on white's wall. So eventually, black will be able to. There is potential for black to eventually attack white's wall.
Yeah, this just doesn't look good for white. I mean,
it's something that I didn't find attractive. Yes.
I just don't see what white's getting out of it.
It's very, exactly the point. It's difficult for white to make good use of the wall.
Okay, all right.
And so I played the hane here. So this is setting up a double hane on the left, because when black covers here, white can play the double hane. And we've seen a lot of this in AlphaGo's games, like in the master games, in the series that I was calling the KJ self-play series, although I guess it's correct now to call it it's still a master. It's a later version of master. So I might as well call it master.
It's your series, so you get to call it whatever you want. You want to call it the Popeye series, you can call it the Popeye series, Michael.
I was just having so much trouble figuring out how to pronounce KJ, because that's not correct.
So maybe we should just call it the Popeye series, and everybody will know what we're talking about.
Okay, so to get back to the game.
Okay, you insist.
White plays this hane here to set up the double hane. And so black starts with the cut here. This is sort of forced. And I answer on the side. So this is what I would call, once white has done this move, once white has done this is the main variation up to this point. And like there's a myriad of variations. Like I'm calling it the main variation. You could still find different sequences in professional play. But this is one of the major branching points for black, because black does have the option of playing here. And we did see this in some of the self-played games. That was before 0, even. And white gets to play a capture here, and black captures 1 stone too. So black got to escape on the left and has the corner territory, but actually this capture here that white has gotten on the first line gives white a very strong shape on the right. So I would say, although black has gained in territory, it's usually not very good for black to play this, unless the right side is of low value. Like in some positions, it would have a low value. In this position, the right side is at least as valuable as any other side. So when the right side has a large value or a normal value, I would call this bad for black, because that ponuki that white has is working much more efficiently, and it gives white living shape. And we've seen this working well for white in the self-played series already.
And for black, it looks, to my eye, a bit over-concentrated, yeah? For black?
Well, black has a nice shape locally, but like that ponuki, it's not as effective as the white wall is.
Right.
And so it's sort of, so black cuts once here. That's before black takes the 1 stone. So that black was just putting in a cutting stone there. If black had taken the 1 stone immediately, let's put that variation. If black had taken the 1 stone immediately, then white would be able to connect here, which would give white a very solid shape. So that would be bad for black. So black cuts here. And so all of this so this is what I expected to happen here. And in some games, white would be able to capture in a ladder. Like capturing, it works. So why not capture in a ladder? But I didn't like that in this game, because the ladder breaking move is pretty